Evening, welcome to the PMBC meeting for Wednesday, June 26th. I'm going to share my screen here, hopefully, and we can see the agenda. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yep.
So we have called the meeting to order. There is no warrant. Next item of business is to approve the meeting minutes of 5/8, 5/22, and 6/12. Are there any comments or corrections for those meetings? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
We'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. Bob?
Bob Rama, yes.
Bartlett?
Bartlett Harvey, yes.
Brian?
Brian Pasquale, yes.
Steve? Stacy?
Stacy Scott, yes.
And then Steve last, yes. So that motion carries. Moving on to Shaker Lane. Stacy, do you want to give an update on our last meeting?
Yeah, so I was unable to make our last Shaker Lane Building Committee meeting, which was last Thursday, I believe, but we do have one coming up tomorrow that I'll be at. We're doing a lot of workshops right now with the designers as well as the OPM for just kind of figuring out and brainstorming what the concepts of the school are going to be. So tomorrow we'll be there from 9 to 12 p.m. Talking about academic organization, special ed, media, STEAM, admin, social emotional elements, and community spaces. So that will be our goal for the next meeting tomorrow. And then our meeting following that is a visioning meeting on July 22nd. So that's talking about the different space types, features, and adjacencies that we'll be working on with the design.
So all programmatic issues, right?
What's that?
All programmatic issues?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So anything else to report on Shaker Lane?
I don't have anything. But as I said, I wasn't able to go to the last meeting. So it's a lot of just concept and design stuff we're working on right now.
Yeah, the last meeting basically focused on next steps. So you just reported on that, and I think we're good. So moving on to the high school roof, Brian.
Yeah, so this one, hopefully we can close out soon, finally. We did receive finally the closeout and O&M documentation, warranties, as-built, and so forth from Rockwell Roofing. And also their final bill. I haven't submitted their final bill yet because we're waiting on that. The architect had a couple of comments on the closeout package, a couple of revisions they asked for in the as-built to more accurately reflect what happened. So as soon as we get that wrapped up, I'll submit the final invoice for the next warrant. And then the only other question I had, Steve, is where do we want to send all the files for, for record, for O&M, as-built, all that sort of stuff? Who should those go to?
Good question. Vertex has their SharePoint that we use for uploading. Brian, when they finally come over to Littleton, do you know where Littleton stores them?
Yeah, and I don't know what was in the specification for this roof project, but usually we hand over some hard copies to the building department. Then there's also the uplink for a virtual kind of download to the town website, and then we handed over a few thumb drives to the end user, maybe at the school or maybe the facilities department there, as well as the building department.
Okay, so I can get them over to Steve Mark then, as far as end user for the school.
Yeah, I think so.
Can you just or Steve or Brian, one of you guys, provide me a how to find the uplink to upload them to the town website, and then I can take care of that.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
So let me make myself a big note here. Working semi in the dark.
I haven't used that before, so I just want to make sure they get to the right spot.
Right.
In my experience, they started using this a couple years ago.
Okay.
Not only for that, but for building permit applications and other things. They've been using it online kind of repository. It's been pretty useful.
Okay.
Okay. Got that on my to-do list. Anything else on the high school roof?
That is it.
All right, now to the senior center. Who's going to speak to that, Brian?
Yeah, I can speak and I can show a couple pictures for those that haven't been able to get over. I can make this pretty short and sweet. We plan on bringing our monthly report and any changes to the first meeting of July. Things are going very well. In fact, we're trending a little bit ahead of schedule right now. The steel went up very, very quickly in comparison to what we had in our schedule. So we've been doing the associated testing with the third-party tester with that. And I know I made mention of it last meeting. Tomorrow is the topping off ceremony for beam signing. So the beam has been out in the parking lot in front of the library. If anyone has an opportunity in the morning or afternoon to go by and sign their name as part of the committee, you're more than welcome. Commodore is putting on lunch as well for about 100 people. So if there's any time for anybody here that'd like to swing by, they're more than welcome to attend.
So you need to you need to clarify that because it's a Texas barbecue.
Sorry, yeah, I left it. I buried the lead there. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So,
So come on by.
would you mind if I just share my screen, Steve? I'll give a quick.
Yeah, let me unshare. Okay, you got it?
Yep. If you can see my screen, here's our beam just to show you the location. There's been multiple people filtering in throughout the day as we kind of get ready to do that pick. That's where it will be, and we'll have the crane inside the fence. We'll be able to take that, and food will be served out in front of that. Mike, is there anything you wanted to speak to on some of these to show the structure of the building?
As you can see in this photo, they've got all the structure up, all the structural steel columns and beams are in place, and I believe they've been plumbed at this point. And then if you look at the top of that, you can see they've put some metal decking down, which that's, I believe, on the low roof. Looking at the elevator shaft, and then there's more photos of them installing the metal decking on the roof. That'll be from the Shattuck Street side. Just more photos of the steel structure and then decking. That's pretty much the only things that have been going on for the past month or so.
Yeah, so
they've been doing a very good job.
Yeah, I'd say the activity really hasn't been that fast and furious right now because everyone wants to be off the site while we're doing the steel erection. And fortunately, we've been able to get that done as quick as possible. We'll come in and do some testing on the shear studs. We will pour the second floor concrete, the deck that will be poured. And then right behind them will be our metal stud contractor and associated mechanical, electrical, plumbing contractors that will be coming in, roughing in their systems. So that's our update for today. We'll hope for good weather tomorrow and look forward to seeing people. Yeah, things are going well right now.
Yeah, Bob and I were out there for the meeting last Wednesday. When we left at a little after 2:00, 98 degrees, and the steel workers were installing that metal deck panel. And I was just thinking, man, I'm glad I'm not one of those guys.
But the water budget for that day was a little higher than usual, but yeah, we've hats off to them.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Brian. Any other updates on the senior center, or
Nothing too much to update. We have reached out to Littleton Water. Like I said, we've had a meeting with them in regards to the sewer flows coming out of here and connecting to the existing system.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for some feedback from Littleton Water. We may have a subsequent meeting with Mass DEP to kind of nudge this along to make sure that there's no speed bumps when we finish this building, that we can turn over occupancy to the end user. So,
did they provide flow tests for you?
Not yet. What we're looking for, what we're asking for is not only the flows that have come out of the library, but also what's been coming out of Town Hall now that the library has moved out, as well as the senior center will be relocating out of that facility, as well as Parks and Rec and the school department will be leaving that facility as well. So our hope is that we take a more global look at the actual flows that are going to be coming from all of these buildings, in hope that it's not as just an add of a new building to the system for while they switch over to the new.
So where does Indian Hill drain to the same septic system? No?
It does not.
Okay. So it should be a net decrease.
That is our hope for that's our sales pitch when we have to have a meeting of DEP if they give any pushback to this.
Got it. Okay.
We've also requested from the design team for more practical flows and not the max flows that are provided by the engineer as well.
It's a great point, Mike. So we were provided flows from our engineer of record, and they were providing flows based upon what they saw as the building use, which was like a kitchen function hall in which that they maxed out the amount of people that could be in that building. I think it was over 300 or 400 people that could be in that building at one time. So the flows that were being provided by the engineer were extremely inflated, therefore raising the eyebrows of the Littleton Water, saying that they weren't going to be able to take on this capacity. So we have some homework to do with the engineer as well to really make sure that we get realistic flows that are going to be coming out of this building.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments, questions? So we will move on to Indian Hill. Brian?
Yep. I have Matt with me as well. We had a more formal kickoff this morning with the contractor on site today. They have lightly mobilized onto the site. They did speak with the building inspector and got permission to do so. The building permit is still with the town using the website that I was alluding to earlier. It has a few more departments that need to check off the review of the plans in order to issue the building permit. But the contractor has been on site just to kind of poke around and lightly do some exploratory work in order to identify any unknowns that were there. For example, in the basement, the plans did not know what size footings we had under some of these columns. And so we had in the drawings that they need to explore, determine what is the footing. And if there is no footing, then they need to pour a new footing. And so they did chip out around one of our granite columns. We determined that there are very small footings. It's pretty much a piece of granite sitting on a rock underground. Therefore, it was determined, we were able to generate an RFI, get it reviewed by the structural engineer, and a new 7x7 concrete footing is going to be placed in the ground to reassure the structure of this building. Matt, not to put you on the spot too, I can share my screen. I can give a couple pictures from today. There's really not much to report with that. We did do some exploratory work on the exterior. This is the lower level entry from the street on King Street. What we have found, and if you're in the basement on these hot days in the summer, it's really kind of a musty, and it's kind of really high in moisture content. We determined that there's been water that's been getting in through this entry, and it's determined that this drain that we're all standing around staring at is not draining properly. It's something that we're taking into consideration. We're going to take out the cap that's there. It's almost like a residential drain cap that gets clogged every time it rains with silt and sediment and leaves. Therefore, the water backs up. It has nowhere to go. It enters the building and therefore saturates the carpets and creates a locker room type smell down in that basement. So we're aware of it. We're going to take some inexpensive routes to make sure that this drain can drain properly. And then also look into the dehumidification and air transfer that we can do in that basement to kind of lighten the load on that. Besides that, from the contractor, they owe us a schedule and a schedule of values. We expect that by the end of the week. That will be reviewed by our team. And that will also facilitate the builder's risk policy that's being generated by the town and their insurance. So I've been working with the agent from the town's insurance company in order to issue that. But so far, I think we're in a good spot. Once we receive that building permit, it will kick off the official notice to proceed under contract, which is going to run 8 to 10 months. And we're going to be meeting weekly. Alicia and her team were there as well to kind of, we're going to be using them as kind of end user as we start exploring and opening up walls that weren't opened if we didn't have enough time during the design to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck that we can. Matt, anything you want to add to this?
No, just looking at the picture that's on screen right here, as soon as we pulled the that cap off of the thing, it drained very readily. So we think that it's, as Brian said, it's a sort of a drain grate that's sort of incapable of handling the amount of water and the leaf litter that was clogging it. But as soon as we pulled that off, the issue seemed to be resolved fairly quickly. So we do think that that's a fairly easy fix there that we can have Classic look at. One thing that I think we're encouraged by is that Classic is doing their exploratory work and they're asking good questions that we think are helpful for us and helpful for them in keeping things moving and keeping on that schedule generally that we are anticipating, as Brian mentioned. The owner architect contractor meeting we had earlier today went pretty well. We have a number of items that they've made progress on relative to getting us to getting that building permit. Things are off to a pretty good start.
So I see some stud walls here.
Yes.
Are those new?
They are not. And so this wall is to be removed. And so the contractor, as part of their kind of exploratory, started taking some of the drywall. It all kind of crumbled down. This building, it was had some renovation work probably 30 years ago, just before 2000. And in doing so, we've uncovered maybe some other questions that we wanted to make sure. So the contractor took down the wall, the drywall here, exposed the studs. I'll blow up this picture here. In doing so, they actually buried a sprinkler head, and we have some questions about the structural integrity about this rafter right here. So, these are the good questions that we can ask now before they actually really mobilize and we have direction forward. But this is a wall that gets called to be removed, and then the subsequent room is a larger conference room on the first floor.
So does that modifying the spaces, does that affect the sprinkler coverage and the annunciator panel graphic?
Yes, and part of the fire protection scope in here is installing some new heads and relocating them to make sure that the proper coverage is within this building. One thing that is not part of this scope, it's a very minor fire protection scope that's in here. We did look at the fire assembly that's in the basement. It does look like there may be some minor leakage within the system. So that's something that we're looking into, whether or not we can identify what these leaks are. It may be something where we ask the subcontractor to do a day of exploratory work and identify what it's going to take in order to make the system fully airtight, because we don't want to be having any leaks onto a new ceiling or anything that's going to be new in this building. So. overall, they're getting here. They've dropped the dumpster just to get ahead of themselves, and their intention. And speaking with their superintendent, they want to start and get a lot of the exterior work completed prior to any of the weather changing. They want to get the roof complete. They want to get the skylight work, the solar tubes installed in the roof, as well as the replacement of the rotted siding and trim, and get that installed so that he can get the painter here before it starts getting colder in the late fall. So that's going to be one of the first orders of business.
And when is that scheduled due?
By the end of the week. We really want that, so because that's gonna help us with our paperwork, but it's also gonna have us review it, and it's gonna kind of dictate us as the OPM our involvement of being on site and the management for it. So
Of course. And then the schedule of values at the same time.
same
Yes.
time as well. He's reached out to all of his subcontractors to provide those. What my usual practice of business is they're not allowed to wreck on anything unless we have a detailed breakdown of what these are, because we want to make sure that the town holds the leverage when it comes to requisitions, and we don't want to be overpaying for work that still hasn't been completed.
Correct. Thanks.
In terms of order of magnitude of that, Mike from Classic did indicate that he does plan to get that to us by the end of the week. So we'll be looking for that by the end of this week.
Is that it,
I will
Brian?
just say my last comment is Doug, who is our site manager for the senior center. He's been getting in a good routine of going down to King Street on a daily basis. He provides a daily report for both projects. Make sure that the manpower will be doing the certified payrolls for both projects, making sure that they're in compliance before we approve any requisitions as well.
So we saw Matt up at the senior center. Is that where he's kind of headquartered, or so
Yes.
that's kind of his office, and then he goes down to King Street?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Myself and Doug are based out of the construction house, the senior center project.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Anything
Got
else?
a little bit of air conditioning in the house, so we're taking advantage.
And internet.
Yeah,
internet too,
exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Yes, Steve, I have a question. I don't know if it's a Brian question or an Alicia question, but I'm wondering what's going on with the tennis courts that were between the Indian Hill and the high school.
good
Is
question.
that part of the Indian Hill project, or is that an
No.
independent park
So
and
for-
rec project?
For our scope in this project, there's actually no site work to be done. We were directed
Okay.
to do mainly just the renovations of the structure proper,
Okay,
and that the associated site, parking lot, and potential tennis courts would be at a later date. My guess is Alicia is muted, and
yeah, she's my
She has a hand up.
my screen says her hand is up.
How
yeah,
do we unmute her?
lower hand that's on mute.
Is Kirby on?
She's unmuted now. She should be, I think.
Well,
It looks like she's still muted.
I think she has to unmute herself.
All
There you
right,
go.
does that work?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yahtzee. So we are working with the school to try to come up with an option. So we are working on what we're going to be doing with the tennis courts at the high school, but that is a separate project from this one.
okay, but thank you.
Alicia,
no
wasn't there
problem.
some money? Wasn't there some money that was donated to repair those or build a new set?
No, not donated. We did get money through CPC funds to work on that project, but not donation as far as I know.
I thought there was something with the Fields project there that they were going to
No.
contribute to a.
You're welcome to.
That would be nice, but I don't. Okay. Any other comments? Then we'll move down to member input. I think Bob has something to say.
Other than just the fact that you and I are involved with the police station again,
Again, yeah.
and we're gonna meet down there tomorrow with Brian and Ryan and the chief to look at some problems he's having.
So Brian, did you have any luck with
I've reached out to 2 people with no response yet. If not, I told him, I gave him the out that if they're unable to mobilize for tomorrow's meeting, if you can make yourself available, we'd really like to hear your expertise. Like we spoke about, I'd like to take the high road first and get our eyes on it exactly to see what the issue is here.
right? So for everyone's edification, 2 years ago, and Brian Pasquale was part of this project. We kind of fixed the envelope for the police station so it wouldn't leak anymore, and apparently now it's leaking again. So
Oh,
So, sounds like kind of fixed was the right term, Steve.
kind of fixed, yeah.
We
So
kind of got some window trim that's bowing again.
So it's never a good day when I get a email from the chief. Like, oh my God, now what?
I got it first though, Steve.
I know you do. I know, but all right. So anything else, Bob?
I'm all set as far as that goes, Steve.
Bartlett,
no, I'm good, thanks.
Stacy,
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Brian.
Nothing new, just that, we talked about it the last time, but this will be my last meeting, but I will still be around. I'll pass on the documents from the high school roof, but if anyone has any questions, you can still get me by phone or email or whatever.
Yeah, we appreciate your time on the committee and your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you much, Brian.
Yes,
Thank you guys all.
thank you.
Yeah, and I have nothing. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second it.
All in favor, Bob,
Bob Rumley, yes.
Bartlett,
Bartlett, Harvey, yes.
Brian,
Brian Pasquale, yes.
Stacy,
Lisa Scott, yes.
and Steve Moore, yes. Great. Kept this to about half an hour, and thanks for your participation. We'll see you, I think, in 3 weeks, maybe, because I think
July 10th, I think, Steve.
July.
10th of July.
That's it. So have a great 4th.
Right,
Thanks. You too,
thank you.
Steve.
And hopefully we'll see you at the beam raising tomorrow.
Texas cookout.
Texas cookout.